Yeah. Can you tell the people, our subscribers, your name and
Okay,
where you work and who you are actually?
okay, that's good. Okay, Reverend Father Frederick Ifeanyi Obanaya. I'm a Dominican priest from the province of Nigeria and Ghana. I'm the promoter for Justice and Peace for our province, and I'm also the promoter for Justice and Peace for in Africa. So that's basically who I
That's
am.
it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm quite happy
Mm.
to at least get you and get involved in this very important topic, addiction. I want you to tell our viewers and subscribers what addiction, what do you understand as addiction?
Okay, addiction is a condition where a person compulsively engages in a certain behavior. I use the word compulsively, because the performance of such an act, comes in an irresistible manner.
Mm,
And it is because it is irresistible, the person cannot but give in to such an act, and which means that it is bad, it is evil, and it
mm,
is animalistic.
mm,
Addiction is bad because the addicted person does not consider the interests of the other person in what he or she does, but he's only interested in satisfying himself or herself.
mm.
So it makes it such that it is evil. It
Okay.
is animalistic in the sense that addiction disposes reason.
Mm,
I don't mean dispose in terms of opening it, but it
yes. Mm,
pleasure to rule over reason. As
okay.
such, it makes us behave like animals. That's why I say it's animalistic. It makes one behave in an animalistic manner. So
Okay.
addiction is bad, number one. Number two is
Mm,
evil, and it's animalistic.
okay.
And at the foundation of it is that compulsive behavior that the person
Okay.
cannot but just act so as to satisfy himself.
Okay.
Somebody knows that he's addicted to something when the person cannot but do that. And that is where the issue is.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. I want to thank you for your response. But I want to ask, you described man, you compared addiction in man to animal character or behavior. Are you saying that addiction is more of instinct? You know, animals move or do things by instinct. Are you saying that once you are addicted, is that instinct that governs you?
Okay. Essentially, what I was pointing out there is
Hmm,
that what makes us human
hmm,
over and above animals is
hmm.
that we are intelligent animals. And when we
Okay.
say that we are intelligent animals, it is
Hmm,
because we are conscious of our consciousness. It
okay.
might sound too high. What I mean is that if I am approaching or I am hungry and I'm going to eat and I
Hmm,
am eating, I
hmm.
am conscious of the fact that I am consciously eating.
Okay.
So the human person is conscious of his motion, is conscious of what he's doing. But in
Okay.
terms of addiction, the
Hmm,
human person no longer considers what he does in his complete
hmm,
cycle,
hmm,
but he's moved to satisfy himself. And that is why I
hmm,
say that it becomes an issue because instead of pleasure being lower, being submissive to reason, it now
hmm.
comes
Why is it? Okay.
taking into consideration what happens. And that is why people that are addicted can do anything so as to satisfy themselves. they can kill, they can rape, they can sell their own properties too. So their major interest is to satisfy themselves. And that's why I say it's animalistic. Because
Oh,
if an animal, feels attracted to another animal, he
mm,
just approaches. But for the
mm,
human person, you can be attracted or move towards something. But
mm,
considering other things, you can decide, oh, I don't want to do this. So what makes us human is delayed gratification. And that's why
okay,
when we are small, we are being taught, say, don't eat outside. So sometimes, even while you're outside and you have seen the food, you are moved towards it, you look at your mom with the eye corner, they say, do not dare it, and
okay,
you draw back. So all those things are periods that are teaching us to hold ourselves back. That it's not everything that we are attracted to that we should move to, that we should move to. So that's what
okay,
makes us human over and above other animals.
okay, okay. Well, I like that your response. But where
Mm.
does the spiritual come in now when it comes to addiction? When I'm talking about spiritual now, is God involved? Is the devil involved? Where does it come in?
Okay, I think the problem is that we
Mm,
often attribute things to devil or some other entity, outside of. But let's, talk about first, the capacities or the abilities that we have been given as human persons.
mm,
And one of it is that we have the freedom to choose to do something or not. You
okay.
know, when you talk about addiction,
Mm,
what when somebody addicted, or he or she is addicted, is that you can no longer do without it, which means that such an act has become natural to the person. It has become a habit to the person.
okay.
So addiction has to do with habits,
Okay.
you know. So for the human person, the human person should cultivate a behavior
Okay. 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 Okay.
for natural, or like a second nature unto you.
Okay.
But in the Christian ethics, we say you should practice a good act, or you should do things that are good, so that over time it masters you and it becomes natural to you. Because
Okay.
without the practice of virtue, you will not be
Mm,
able to live with others around you. Without the practice of virtue, we will not be able to realize peace inside of you. Without the practice of virtue, you will not be able to realize that connection between you and the divine.
okay.
So the
Okay.
practice of virtue helps us to realize peace between us and God, inside of ourselves, and between us and others.
Okay. And can God save you from getting addicted, or He leaves you to fight it yourself?
And the answer, truthfully, is that God has given the human person the capacity to choose to do something or not. So
Mm,
it is a choice that the human person makes over time.
okay.
If he has lived his life well, it lands him into virtue, which becomes a habit.
Okay.
Maybe at this point, let me explain a little bit what virtue is. Maybe it will help to make what I'm
Okay.
trying to explain very clear.
And you can go on.
Virtue is the mean between two excesses.
Okay.
They, or you can say that virtue is the mean between two vices: the vice of
Okay.
excessiveness and the vice of deficiency. For
Okay.
instance, there are two vices now: the vice of being a coward, and the vice of being reckless. Like if I
Mm,
say that there is a lion in the compound and it is killing people,
mm.
To go to confront the lion without carrying something you use to kill it would be a reckless act,
Okay,
but it will not make sense to that I will now abandon my place because there is an intruder.
okay,
So courage demands that I go, but I do it with right reason, going with the right instruments in order to meet what is out there. So virtue
okay.
lies in the mean between two
Mm,
vices. So when we live our lives, we should always strive to maintain that mean, that we may not be
o-
caught in the web of excessiveness or in the web of deficiency. So
okay.
if the human person does not control himself in the way that
Mm,
he lives his life, that is when he lands into addiction. It takes time
mm,
because it is through gradual practice that it becomes a second nature. So also is
mm.
it that through gradual practice, if you are doing the right thing, it becomes a second nature to you. Let me explain more.
Okay.
For those that watch football, the
Mm,
likes of Messi and Ronaldo, when
mm,
you see when they play their own free kick, it's spectacular. You say, oh, that this guy is good, is a goat, you know.
mm,
And the idea is that they put time into what they do. So because they are
mm,
practiced over time, people that read their personal life history will hear that they do extra practice, that they continue practicing even when others have left,
mm,
which means that the more effort they put into what they do, through constant practice, it masters them. That
mm,
that a little maneuvering, you know, they're able to achieve so much. Just like a
mm,
man who plays guitar, if he has played it over time, it masters him. That when he touches
mm,
it, the sound that you hear will be different from a man who does not play all the time. So practice,
mm.
as we say, makes perfect. So that is also the same way that if you continue doing what is good, it becomes a second nature unto you, which is virtue. If you continue doing what is bad, it becomes a second nature unto you, which is vice. And in that sense, we say addiction.
Okay. I thank you for that.
So,
I
so
think
to answer your
okay.
question,
Continue.
to
Mm,
answer your question now, whether God can help somebody overcome addiction without the effort of the human person, it will be
mm,
impossible. Without the effort of the human person, it will be impossible because grace acts on nature. So there
mm,
must be some kind of effort on the side of the human person, which
mm,
falls under the area of discipline and self control. Then
mm,
prayer, through which grace enters. So prayer or grace helps us to stand firm in a life of self control. Why self
mm,
control too helps us to stand firm in a life of prayer. So you cannot take one and leave the other. Both
mm,
self control and the grace of God, they are both necessary to be able to
mm,
overcome this, to
mm.
stand firm in life of virtue or to overcome vice.
Okay. Okay. In
Yeah.
this aspect, what are the different kinds of addiction that have you know about different kinds of addiction?
Okay. In the Catholic understanding, we may not really be talking about different kinds of, addiction. What we'll be talking about essentially, are vices.
Mm,
Vices, things that people do that are bad, that has become connatural unto them.
mm,
As against which are
mm,
things that people do that are good, that has also become a second nature unto them.
mm,
In the Catholic understanding, you know, when we use the word addiction, sometimes we think it is a modern thing.
mm,
But right from the works of the ancient, the philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, in the 12th, 13th century, our brother Aquinas, these guys have been talking about addiction,
mm,
but it was couched under the concept of
mm,
ethics.
mm,
Ethics is the science of moral conduct.
mm,
because you know that it is when somebody does not behave well that he lands him or her into addiction.
mm,
So once the science of good moral conduct is done and done well, the
mm.
the problem of addiction will be wiped out. So
Okay,
addiction comes up when the human person does not live his or her life the way that he or she is supposed to live. So
okay,
addiction comes when the human person, instead of allowing reason to rule all that he does, allows pleasure to rule over and above reason. And that
mm,
makes us behave like animals. So I
okay,
don't think we should be delving more into what makes us lower beings. We should be delving more into what makes us human. Because what we should understand more and more is what we should do as human person that will make us to grow more. And that's why I will choose to talk more about virtue than to talk more about vice.
okay. Okay, let me
Yes.
give you paint a scenario to you. Alcohol, you get
Yeah.
it? When drinking alcohol, when is it virtue? When is it vice?
Okay. When you talk about virtue, alcohol, alcohol, there is the virtue of temperance,
Mm,
to be temperate. And what
mm.
does it have to? It has to do with them two things. Our brother,
Okay,
our says it has to do with them two things. With their regards to taste and with their
mm,
regards to touch. In
okay,
terms of taste, you have food and drink and all that things. With regards to touch, you have sexual sins. All right.
okay.
So, and it has to be, it has to do with maintaining the mean between the essence of overtaking it and the essence of not taking.
Mm,
So alcohol, you know that it has become bad when it displaces reason. So alcohol is supposed to help us for conversation. So when you know that you have gone beyond the border or you have gone beyond the line, it's
mm.
when you're not able to contribute in the conversation that is supposed to facilitate in a meaningful way or in a reasonable way. And
Okay,
indications of this is when the person becomes loquacious. You talk in an uncontrollable manner.
okay.
Then you know that there's an issue. In fact, people don't know that excessive take of alcohol is a mortal sin. It is a grave sin. While it's a grave sin or a mortal sin, it is a grave sin because it displaces reason. And if it displaces reason, it means that the person can do anything.
Okay.
So that is where the issue is. Because
Okay.
reason is supposed to rule over pleasure, but now pleasure is now ruling over reason.
Prison, yeah.
So, and remember that the way that you react to alcohol is different. What I will take and it will affect me may not be what you will take and it will affect you.
Okay.
So, in fact, in Catholic countries, you know, people introduce their children to alcohol,
Mm,
but in a gradual manner, considering the fact that they are not to abuse it. All right.
mm.
Even scripture says that a little alcohol is good for the heart, that you should take it. That's referring to moderation, referring to
Okay.
the idea that you must take it, but in terms of virtue,
Mm.
you know, maintaining that mean between excessiveness and deficiency. So
Okay.
you know that you have gone beyond the border, beyond the line when it impedes conversation.
o- Okay. If you translate the alcohol example to drugs, would you say I'm talking of hard drugs now, would you say there's virtue, there's vice as regards that? Or it's all vice? Hmm. mm, mm, mm.
So it is the abusive use of it that is the problem.
Okay.
Because what happens in that instance
Mm,
is that that takes the place of something inside of us.
okay.
Let's say, for instance, just in the video that you made some time ago, that the doctor was talking about, that the human mouth knows the amount of saliva that it should produce at each and every time to maintain the mouth
Yes.
being wet.
Yes.
So once there is an abuse, it affects the brain. The brain
Mm,
reduces what it should produce ordinarily because there is something else that is producing that.
yes.
All right. And the more you take that substance, the more the brain, the more the body reduces what it produces because because it is receiving it from another point, from another side.
Okay.
And the human person will continue, increasing his intake so as to have the pleasure that he desires.
Okay.
That is abuse. That is excessiveness. That is not virtue. That is vice.
That is wise. Okay.
All
If we
right.
play that,
So,
if we play that same scenario with sex, how do you translate that? Sex.
you know, the church has never said that sex is bad.
Okay.
All right.
Mm,
Where it is wrong or bad is one, when you are reaching out to somebody who you are not married to.
okay.
In that sense, there is a clear angle of lack of self control
Okay.
because you know that what you're doing is not virtuous,
Okay.
that this person does not belong to you by way of matrimonial consent, that this
Okay.
person does not belong to you in the sense of that people have been joined together sacramentally.
Okay.
In fact, the essence of virtue is for self control. So it
Okay.
helps you so that you do not allow your emotions or your feelings to rule over you.
Okay.
When people sleep with people that are not their wives or their husband, or when people rape people, it is because they choose to satisfy themselves over and above doing what is good.
Okay.
So self-control should let you to understand that the man or the woman that you are reaching out to does not belong to you by way of matrimonial union. Hence, you should
Okay.
control yourself. And to be honest with you, the more the human person neglects to control himself or herself,
Mm.
the more he or she becomes a beast.
Becomes what?
Becomes a beast
Beast. Okay.
unto himself and unto others.
Mm.
Because what makes us human is that freedom of choice, freedom of the will to be able to choose to do or not to do. When you
Okay.
say that a man or a woman is a person of integrity, it has embedded in it a man, a woman who is disciplined or has self-control.
Okay. Okay.
When people that walk outside of this country, there was a video that popped up some months ago about a CEO that I think it was in the midst of a match or something that the video, captured him with some other person in the space, and it was finally, eh, you know, uh, the company that he was working for asked him to leave. He was sacked. And what did
Mm.
they say? That his conduct was not, in alliance with the conduct that is, expected of those that work in that company. Which
Mm-hmm.
means, that they expect that anybody who works in that company and is in that position where he is should be a
mm,
man or a woman who is a person of discipline.
mm.
But in our own time, we are more and more looking down on the whole emphasis on discipline and self-control. More or less, we want to behave like animals.
Okay.
But we capable manner in the society.
Okay. 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 I like.
So without the principle of self-control and discipline, there will be lawlessness.
Okay. A man who marries more than one wife or a woman who marries more than one husband, is that person, the person, has he lost self control? And can you contest that with virtue or vice? I'm talking of.
Okay, under under the sphere of Catholic teaching,
Hmm,
is one man, one wife.
okay.
Because for us, the two of them become one.
Hmm,
And it is something that the bond is something that is eternal. It says it is only death that can separate them.
okay.
But for the Muslims, their teaching allows them to marry more than one wife if
Hmm,
if you be able to love them equally.
hmm,
Did you hear that caveat? If you be able to love them equally.
okay.
You know. So, but under the Catholic sphere, be faithful to one woman.
Yeah.
Let me surprise you more.
Okay.
Even nature imposes on the human person some elements of self-control and discipline.
Okay.
That is why for the human person, there are periods that you naturally stay away so as to
Hmm,
recover yourself.
okay.
But in our own time, we are no longer interested in obeying those voices of nature. We want
Okay.
to always be active. But nature teaches us that there is time for everything.
Okay.
So nature teaches us the principle of self-control also.
Okay.
But we are no longer conscious of all those things.
Okay.
So more and more in our own time,
Hmm.
I was listening to a woman,
Hmm.
Esther, what's her name again? Esther Perel.
Hmm.
She was talking about that in our own time, that the principle of that the word or the concept monogamy has been
Hmm.
changed, because monogamy means one man, one woman. He said, but
Okay.
in our own time, that the way that we are now living our lives, that what we are saying without knowing it is that at each time is one man, one woman. Because when we marry someone, most
Hmm.
times in our own time, the person has already had a lot of sexual partners.
Okay.
And when you present this part to your partner,
Hmm.
what you are saying to your partner is that you are not the very first person that I am seeing. You are not the very first person that I am giving my body to. You are not the very first person that I am experiencing. And that what
Hmm.
these things are saying indirectly is that
Hmm.
after you, that there may be others.
Okay. So
Did you
getting you
get that?
rightly, yes, I get what you're saying. I get
So,
what you're.
which is almost more or less like a slap on the face. That is why
Okay.
in our own time, you see that people complain so much about unfaithfulness in marriage.
Okay.
And the truth is that if one has not been able to control himself prior to marriage, do you now think it is after being married that the person will now be able to control himself or herself?
Okay.
It will not be so because the person has, diluted that principle of self-control that he's supposed to have acquired over time. And it does not just fall down from heaven. It is
Hmm.
gotten through practice because it is through practice that it becomes a habit. So
Okay.
if someone has not been practicing the principle of self-control before he or she gets married, it will
Hmm.
still have a huge effect on the person post marriage or post wedding.
Okay. I will be asking asking you some on some aspects now, which I want you to give me the answer in maybe a sentence or two. Divorce, virtue or vice?
The word does not exist in the Catholic dictionary
So
because for
vice.
us, it does not occur.
It does not occur.
Yes.
By your explanation, polygamy is vice.
I can't say that because I'm
Oh,
saying that in the sphere of Catholic teaching is one man, one woman.
one sentence again. Celibacy, vice or virtue? You practice that?
How insofar the person will be able to keep to the principle or what he has promised, there is no problem. Even the scripture says that.
Okay.
But
If
if you
so,
know you will not be able to control yourself, then there's no need getting into it.
but why does it seem that the church seems to not give that free will to the priest? When the priest wants to leave, it goes through a lot of processes. Why don't you just write a letter and say, I don't think I can cope with celibacy, I want to go? Make it easy for them.
Okay, you said I should be very brief.
Yes.
Anybody that enters to become a priest
Mm,
does that voluntarily. So it is a free
okay.
will. In fact, the person applies and writes
Mm,
before he's being considered for ordination.
okay.
And in that letter, the person has to state that he's doing this willingly.
Okay.
So just as the person applied voluntarily without compulsion,
Okay.
you know, so that when he does not want to give, he has to state it. And it has to go through a process. That process is also in case he's having some issues that he needs some kind of counseling or prayer that will help him to or to come back in full worship again, then it can be done.
Okay. Okay.
Let me give you one
What?
principle straight away. You
Okay.
have to be careful of things that are done hurriedly. St. Augustine
Okay.
said that those things in nature that grow so fast die so fast.
Okay. One sentence or two. Betting, virtue or vice?
Betting,
Because you spoke about football, every weekend people go to those places and bet. Virtue or vice?
it is a game, but it is more, it leads people to the extent of being addicted to it. So,
Hmm.
as addiction, it is a vice.
It is a vice. Okay. How about borrowing? Virtue or vice?
If it goes to the essence of becoming an addiction, that the person cannot control themselves or control what he has, that when you are using the things that you have within your own purview, you are spending it in an irrational manner with the conviction that you can collect another person's own. It's a vice.
Okay. I want to ask this question. Which addictive activity would you consider a virtue?
Addiction is never a virtue.
Okay.
Addiction is never a virtue because in addiction, pleasure rises over and above reason.
Okay.
Whereas it is reason that should control pleasure, not pleasure controlling reason.
Reason. Okay. Okay.
That is the
Well,
point that I've been trying to make throughout our
I
conversation.
get the conversation, what you are trying to say. And
Mhm.
I want to ask a question. What does the Catholic Church do or to help those who are already in the vice, which means already addicted? How does they support them, the Catholic Church?
Okay, first and foremost is that you have to let the person to understand what he or she has gotten himself into. Because that person also needs to realize that he or she has made a mistake. Number two, be open to amend it. And that openness to amendment it is to begin to live life that will help to cancel out what he has done earlier.
Mm,
What do I mean? If he has been moving towards this direction, he should start trying to move towards this direction. But that individual has to know that it's a gradual process because it is through constant practice that you will overcome that other vice. Just as you move toward that wrong side through constant practice. So it is constant practice that will make you to become virtuous, in that area.
Can you
However,
Okay,
the
okay.
grace of God is also important. Self-control and prayer. Self-control has to do with trying to be consistent in what you're doing, trying to be consistent in saying no to that which pulls you to the wrong direction, trying to do at all times that which is good. Number two, also asking God to grant you the grace that will help you to stand firm in doing that. That's it.
Okay.
Self-control and prayer.
I want to ask, does the Catholic Church have any structure where I'm talking of building now or administrative structure in a way where they can use to help those who are already addicted? Because most of our youth are getting involved in one addictive activity or the other.
The church has been at the forefront of this for centuries.
Okay.
You know, when you go to meet a priest,
Mm,
because through counseling too, the priest can further refer you to some other persons.
okay.
In our time and age, the work of the people in Justice and Peace Commission also involves that too. They do not
Okay.
only give out food, they also help to restore those people, you know, to how they are supposed to be ordinarily. We Dominicans, we also do that.
Okay.
Like in Lagos, we have done a lot of workshops and seminars in that view. And we
Okay.
also need people to be NGOs that will help them in that regard. We also
Okay.
work with NAPTIP and several other government agencies. In
Okay.
fact, we also have a center for counseling for refugees and deportees to show you how involved we are in this.
In this, okay. I want to even ask a question which just came into my mind now. Do the Catholic Church do, because I'm talking from the movies I watch, do the Catholic Church do what we call deliverance? I remember those days of Dracula and all that. Is there anything called
Yes,
deliverance in the Catholic Church?
yes. In fact, the proper word for that is exorcism.
Yes, exorcism.
The church has been at the forefront of that for years. In
Mhm.
fact, in the structure of the church, every diocese or archdiocese is supposed to have an exorcist. And what do we mean by an exorcist? Someone that the archdiocese or the diocese gives power in the name of the church to do that for the church. Remember that in the scripture, God gave us power, over those lower, spirits, because anything we undo here is undone and everything. So He has given that power to the church to do that. and the church is still doing that in our present time.
Okay, okay, okay.
Mm.
I want you to repeat that because the network went off on exorcism.
So I said that the church is still very much active in her role in the delivering souls from the dungeon of the evil one. Because
Hmm,
the role of the church primarily is for
hmm,
salvation of souls.
hmm,
And salvation means freedom from death,
hmm,
from Satan,
hmm.
and from sin.
Okay.
Freedom from death, from
Hmm.
Satan, and from sin. So the
Okay.
church is still delivering people from the dungeon of sin, from the
Yes.
captivity of the evil one, and from
Yes.
death that arises because of our sinfulness.
Okay. So you practice one form of exorcism or the other.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. What else do you do to help those who are addicted?
Again,
What else apart from this do you do to help those who are addicted?
in fact, when people come to you and you feel that something is not normal,
Hmm.
you have to critically look into it to make sure whether it is a case of psychological imbalance or is a case that is spiritual or both.
Okay.
So sometimes it can be very difficult to make that distinction.
Okay.
you know and the problem that churches do in Nigeria, I don't just mean the Catholic Church now, but the followers of Christ, is that sometimes we move only towards one direction and leave the other. Like when people
Okay.
go and say that, oh, my son or my daughter is having this experience, I will continue praying without also doing some medical side to it.
Okay.
So the church is fully interested in sciences. So the church is not
Okay.
against science. So the church
Okay.
can say, okay, go to the hospital, treat yourself. We also talk because God can also work, or God also works through the doctors.
Okay.
So but sometimes from what we are seeing in our local environment is that sometimes some mushroom churches will just keep somebody down and be praying, thinking that it is
Hmm.
only prayer without also doing the medical side.
Okay. 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 I want to really appreciate you. Have you had any experience with a person who is addicted in one way or the other before we go? Oh.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay.
hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear. Just say something on that. Have you had any experience with anyone who is addicted?
Okay, in one of our programs,
Mm,
somebody has come to say or confess that this has been his experience over time. But having or coming to our program, listening to us and seeing what we do, that he's open to change.
okay.
And I know that our people pick the case up to see him through.
Mm. I
I
want to
think this
appreciate you.
happened, I can't remember which state, but I think it was in the South South.
Mm. Okay. Okay. I want to thank you. Although the network is already working against us, but I thank you. I appreciate you are very philosophical, I must tell you. And I know so many persons around the world will be very happy to listen to you. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
sir.
much. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir.
It's a
Yes.
pleasure. Mm.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.